Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Vital Statistics. I am your host, Shemetris Vital, and you are listening to WESLRADIO, and this is our youth and young adult show. I am so excited because we are, of course, continuing the conversation about the power to choose and the choices, the voice, and the decisions that you choose to make. And what's even more exciting is y'all have heard it from me for the last couple of weeks and months that I'm like, I need some men's voices on here. So I am pleased to introduce, and I'll let them introduce themselves, but they are all the way from Louisiana, and actually one lives in my present community. But what's exciting is that I have guys from out of town right now who have sat down, and they're going to talk to us about some of their decisions, their choices, and where their voice is concerning those decisions that they're making. So, and of course, I've got my old-time faithful friend. She's here too, so you'll hear her name. I'll let everybody introduce themselves. So we're gonna start with my faithful friend and buddy.
Oh, hey everybody, this is Megan.
And
my name is Mark Mathis from Monroe, Louisiana.
What's going on? Martinez Anderson for Shreveport, Louisiana.
What's going on? I'm Nasi from Newark, New Jersey.
All right then, I forgot we went to another state.
Oh, well, I'm from Buffalo, New York. Yay!
But none of them have really been in Texas long. So the exciting part about this is that we are talking about those decisions and those choices. And last week I told you about my testimony, and we talked about what it means as far as the power to choose is concerned. So I want to jump right in because these guys were already talking before we started recording. So let's just jump in. Anybody can go first, but the whole point of this is the decisions that you made probably at, let's start at like 10, you know, because 10, they say you're like a little preteen or whatever, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then now you are grown men. You are owning it on your own. You have jobs, you've got degrees, you've got your own car, you got your own place, making decisions to be married, all those things. But how about some of those decisions back in the day, just 10 or 15 years ago, how are they affecting you now? And so, just anybody can begin speaking. Just say your name again. Hey, this is Mark, you know.
What's up, everybody? This is Martinez. I could remember around 9, 10-ish, I would go to my grandmother's house on the weekend, and my uncle actually stayed with her, but he would work during the night. So, in my uncle's bedroom was just like pornography everywhere. Mm-hmm. So, basically, all I had to do was cut on TV.
Wow.
If I cut on TV, it was there. So, you know, with that being said, that's what I did on the weekends. I went to my grandmother's house.
Did your grandmother know? Did she know what you were doing?
No, of course not. Of course
not. But you were at her house.
Right. I was at her house in my uncle's room with the door closed.
See, and I think that, but see, you got to be in a place of maturity to be able to talk about what you did before, because at the same time, another portion of why we do Vital Statistics and why I came up with Why Not Wait is because we want to help parents begin to open up their minds about what their kids are doing and what's going on. There's no filters anymore, and it's like you should be watching your child and knowing exactly what your child is doing. You were right there under the nose of your grandmother, right, and your grandmother had no idea that you were in the room next door to her, and probably didn't even know that her son had porn in the room.
Right.
I mean, like, but now, okay, so that's something that you did then. How did that affect you later on? So how old were you?
I would say 9, 10. It lasted for a good minute, probably up to high school. High school,
because it attracted you or whatever,
right,
and made you curious and different things like that. But how did that affect you later on in life? Did you think that life was about porn, or you wanted to be in porn? I mean, what did it do?
Well, actually, it gave me this image for a certain type of woman that I should have. You know, she had to have like a certain waistline, certain breast size, you know, certain skin tone, complexion, certain hair, you know, so I just look for this particular type of woman versus actually looking within, you know, of who she could actually be, who she really is, besides what she is out on the physical side. And
now, obviously having a relationship with God, did that image change a lot?
Right, big time, because now I know that, you know, it is about the things within, you know, the heart. And rather, you know, if she has a relationship with God, you know, how's her love walk? You know, do she respect, you know, herself and others? You know, it's not all about how she look and how she dresses and, you know, how certain things fit on her body. Right, what she does in the bedroom and how she could, you know, do this and do that, you know, because I feel like, you know, if you meet that right person, that God sent person, the bedroom is really not over for discussion. You don't have to worry about that because y'all work on that. Y'all will get there because I feel like once you really love a person and you get to that point with a person, you don't have to worry about having good sex or making
because
you're
with
love
the right person.
Because you're in love with that person, so you're going to automatically engage with them. So it's going to be good all within itself.
Now, as everybody's sitting here, would you guys say that you know, having, you know, not putting you out there on blast, but, you know, having some people in this room having been sexually active prior to getting a relationship with God, that as guys, can y'all say that sex is overrated, or am I still stepping too far out the box?
Sex is definitely not overrated.
I'll say this. I will say this. There's been some sex that, you know, that has been overrated. It's like, because I remember when I first lost my virginity, I was 16.
Okay.
And the first time I lost it, I remember I was sitting there, I was like, this is it? I was like, this is what everybody's been going all crazy for. This is what my brothers and his friends and everything been bragging about. But as it goes on, it's like, okay, now I see what they're talking about.
When you realize what you're doing.
Yeah, when you know what you're doing, and then you're able to get different girls, and you're able to get, you know, like 3, 4 girls at a time. It's like, okay, now this is, I really like this. I really enjoy
this. Now change that message for everybody that's listening, because that's a bad decision.
Oh, no, I was getting to that. Because what it does is, it leads you deeper and deeper into lust. Because once you start having sex, you need to have more of it to get the same what you had when you had it the first time. It's like it's an insatiable appetite. You need to constantly keep going and keep having it and keep getting it. So now just one girl doesn't do. Now you need to have a girl that has a boyfriend or a girl that has a husband. Now you need to have 2 girls. You need to have this. You need to have that.
Different
and
locations.
it never stops. So like it's really like it's an adrenaline and an addiction factor. Yes, exactly. It's never you're
always wanting more. Always. No matter what. It's never enough. I mean, even if you get 3 of them at a time, your next thing, I wonder what it's like to get 4 or 5 at a time.
Wow. I wonder if I could get this porn star, you know, that I once, you know, was talking to at this time. Like, I wonder if I could get her and her friend, or can I get this girl her mother? Like, your mind is never stable. Your mind is always thinking about what's next, what more can I get? And as Martina said, it's never satisfying.
And especially, you know, with watching porn and, you know, they just open up different avenues, and I mean,
ideas.
Because the next thing is, okay, well, I have had sex, and I've had plenty of sex, but I've never had it like this. You know, I want a girl that can do this, or I want a girl that can do that, or I'm gonna have to try that position, or I'm gonna have to try this. So it's definitely never fulfilling. It's always more.
So it's you can understand why God meant it for marriage, because, as you know, it's not overrated, but when it has to be done right, because as I said, it still leaves when you're doing it, you feel good for the times you're doing it. Right after you're done, it's like some kind of hole that's there that can't be filled. It's like an itch that can't be scratched, that you're trying to reach to with sex, but it can't. Like it just can't be reached with that. So you're really like, okay, well, what? And I think that's part of the reason why you want more and more and more, is because you keep trying to scratch this itch that you can't reach. And so now you're trying to use something that was never meant to be used like that to try and do it.
So let's just talk about some more of your decisions. And Mark, let's talk about some of your decisions that you've made that were not maybe good. And now you see, like, oh my God, I'm in my 20s now. I'm working, and that was not a good decision.
Try not to go the sex route, because that was definitely one of my decisions.
Okay. But it's real. That's what young people deal with.
Well, yeah, I guess I could talk on that too. But yeah, this is Mark. When I was 16, I lost my virginity as well. My main decision was to fit in. Okay. And you know, I feel like everybody's picking at me. You know, I need to lie and say I'm having sex just to not be picked at. And I think one of the biggest parts of my testimony, this one time, my freshman year of high school, this girl, she just randomly called me a nerd. And I'm like, excuse me? And she says, I don't ever see you touching on no girls. I don't ever see you trying to. And I'm just like, wait, I expect boys to do this, but for a girl to say this, like, oh man, I'm coming back full throttle. So I came back my sophomore year. You know, I had been working now. I got a little bigger. You know, I thought I was on. And I felt like it wasn't a girl I could talk to. And, you know, I started engaging with girls more, and I just became careless. But it wasn't still until a year later that I began having sexual activity. And what I didn't expect to happen is that it will forever stay in the back of my mind every time I had sex. And it will be at the most inappropriate times, like some of the hardest times at church. Oh my gosh! And I'm just like
preaching.
So you're saying that the sin showed up.
It scars you.
Wow.
So and it almost and it's just like, man, I really. Like, God, I believe I'm delivered from it. I don't feel like I have to engage in it, but at the same time, it's still in the back of my mind. I don't want this scar, but at the same time, it keeps me in such a position like, okay, you see what they did for you then, leave it in the past still. Don't bring it to the present again. You know, that's something that you did. Leave it back there. And, like I said, it's just something that scarred me in the back of my mind because I would compare my first. And then I'll compare number 6.
So right, come
and then,
on.
you know, and it's just like, no, she wasn't like her. Oh, it was only one time with her, but her one time was still better than her 9 times. And it would just mess me up. But it just put me in a position of where I had to pray mightily to get delivered from that thing, because just when I thought that I had gotten out of it, just like Martinez was talking about, wondering what she might be doing in the bedroom. Like, I don't want to walk past a woman and wonder what she's doing in the bedroom. I want to be able to look at a woman and say, she's beautiful. I like to get to know her. She's fearfully and wonderfully made. Like, this is God's daughter I'm looking at. I don't want to be concerned with what she's doing that could satisfy my flesh. But what is pleasing to God, you know, I don't want her to be what I want her to be. I want to be who God wants her to be.
So where are you now with that? So that was years ago and obvious or whatever, but as you said, that's a scar because of making the decision to do and choose the wrong thing.
Which was
you thought then, like we talk about your voice, it's like, oh, my voice is being heard because I'm sleeping with whoever I want to sleep with and I'm having a good old time. But technically, it sounds like God's voice was just as loud, because even though you thought, okay, that sin is not with me, you were sitting in church and thinking, oh, I can get my mind stayed on Jesus, but he was letting you know, I want you. Well, I want you in my, in my place to let those things go, because you said that he told you, let the past be the past, even though it was showing up while you were in church.
Right. So, with that being said, like I said, the original thing was that I was trying to fit in. And I was just putting myself in positions for temptation. Well, one of the things that it hurt me with down the line, I got to a point where I no longer wanted to fit in, but I wanted to bring people where I was going. And what I learned is that it became hard for me to fellowship with young ladies whenever I first got into my walk with Christ, because I still had that sexual craving. It's like I can't be in the fellowship of this girl and just completely leave her to Christ, because I'm still thinking about what I did with old girl that had nothing to do with her, but she's another woman. And I'm wondering now, well, shoot, like, can I really disciple her, or do I need to please myself right now? So that will put me in
you couldn't even lead somebody to Christ because of the sin was wow.
It scarred me that badly. Like I can't disciple this girl. I want to know what she's about at this point. So maybe I'll attempt, but then I'll see how far I can go with it too.
Push the button.
Hold
on. I gotta cut in with that, because he's talking about what Mark was just talking about is so real. Vital, you're talking about the decisions that you made and how it affected you and how they, affected your decisions like years later. I was about, first time I had a sexual exploit, I was 8 years old.
Wow.
And that was when this girl that was being babysit with me had asked me if I had ever done something, and I'm like, no. And she did it to me, and I knew it was wrong because we was in the corner, but I knew that it felt good.
She was babysitting you.
No, she was being babysit with me as well. She was like 13 years old.
Okay.
And so she had done it to me.
13, you were 8.
And I was 8, yeah. And so she had done it to me, and I'm like, wow, this feels good. So I need to, try and do this more. So whenever she'd come over, we'd just, do whatever, and people would just be thinking that we were playing, but that's what we would be doing. Years and years later, when, like what Mark was saying, when he was talking about trying to lead females to Christ, God would specifically speak to me, don't do anything with this girl. Just lead her to me. There is a light on the inside of you that he is using.
That happens now.
And I would be like, okay, God, all right. And then somehow they end up over my house, in my room, in my bed, and of course we end up having sex. I'm talking about multiple girls this happened with. God would be like, Nasi, no, just bring them to church. And I'd be like, okay, God, all right. And I have the best intentions, but in the back of my mind, like, man, she thick. Oh man, I bet she got some nice lips. She got this, that. She got this, that, and the third. And so, like, literally, you're trying to lead them to Christ, but it's like, well, I'm trying to lead them, but I'm trying to, exactly how you said, I'm trying to test the waters to see just how far I can push it, and just how far I can go. And it always ended up leading to, oh yeah, I can have sex with you whenever I want to, but I'm supposed to be leading you to Christ, and I'm supposed to be being an example to you.
And another thing, it gets to a point of confidence in the flesh too. Because it's like, okay, you know what? I'm really delivered. It's probably been an X amount of months since you've done anything, and it's like, man, I've been going on this thing strong. I think I can handle being around the church.
Come on,
and
boy.
Christ.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna be alone with her, and nothing's gonna happen.
Nothing's gonna happen.
But you still didn't trust in God with it. You still trusted in yourself. I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna pray about it because I know I can handle it. God has kept me. I'm good. But then, like I said, you had that confidence in the flesh, and you put yourself in a position to where you fall.
So your flesh, you were more confident with than your confidence with God.
Right.
That is interesting. And if you're just tuning in, we're 15 minutes into our show. This is Vital Statistics. I am Shemetris Vital, and you are listening to WSL Radio, and it is our youth and young adult show. And so I have before me a couple of young adults who have come in from Louisiana. We got one that's from Jersey, one from Buffalo, New York, and we are having a conversation because this month's conversation is about the power to choose, but the decisions, the choice, and the voice, that your decisions that you take on today, how they affect you later on in your life, or whatever you've done in your childhood, how that affects you into your adulthood. And that may be, you're like, okay, I hear people talking about sex, but it's not about talking about sex as in the positive thing, but how also I think this is good for parents that may be listening, because everybody here has said something that has happened to them as a child. And most people think that people go after sex, they've been molested or they've been raped. And that is not a true statement. Yes, there's people that have been molested, there's people that have been raped, but there's other things that display sexual immorality that get us caught up into it that we do not talk about. It's taboo in the church. You know, we're talking about porn. I just have, you know, and constantly saying my story over this is that I was introduced to porn in the 4th grade. You know, watching it. I just believe,
was like 4 years old.
As now I believe that the reason why I have stayed celibate up until now is because what I'm learning now is studying generational curses. That my mom prayed at 6 weeks old because of what happened, her having me before she got married. I believe my mom was like, I'm going after the devil now. So when she gave me back to Christ at 6 weeks and she's in her 20s, she severed his head then for my future now. So no matter what I came in contact with, it was already killed. And a lot of us are sitting here like, yeah, you've been introduced to it. But see, one of the things I would say now is being young men, young women, is that we're talking about this, but now you have a relationship with God. And like you said, having the confidence within your own flesh and not confidence with God. But now as we're talking about it and it's bringing it up in your mind, is that before you have children, you go back to the place that you were as a child, and you say, you know, in the name of Jesus, I take authority over my life, my children's life, my grandchildren, and any seed that precedes me, to cut this enemy off at the head. Because the Bible says flee sexual immorality, but we don't even talk about it to flee it. We bring it in, like Nasi, you were talking about earlier, at your grandmother's house. Oh, wait, no, that was Martinez. At your grandmother's house. You were being babysat with another girl who was playing and fondling you. I mean, but behind the closed doors while adults are still around. That goes to tell me right now, and Megan, you take care of kids, that people have no idea what's going on with their kids wherever they're at. Every single one of us were kids at one point. I was in the 4th grade watching porn at somebody's sleepover.
I remember, just not to cut you off, but I remember my mother used to bring us to the library. Me, my brother, and my sister used to bring us to the library. And that's where, and somehow, I don't know how, but me and my brother would be on porn websites on the library computer.
Whoa, really?
And now, I was 5. Really? I was like 5 or 6 years old. And so they had, you know, certain parent blockers that you couldn't, you know, that they wouldn't let you go to site. But of course, me being very curious, there's always a way around it. So I would be on there, like literally in the middle of the library, having to look over my shoulder, make sure nobody's looking at what I'm looking at.
Take
making
those
the window smaller. Exactly. You make the,
because
you take those chances.
It's drawing you in.
Exactly. And that from that young, you can be like, okay, I know I'm not supposed to be doing this. And those seeds that's planted will lead all the way. If you don't deal with it, will bring fruit up until like whenever you decide to
right.
kill
It definitely plants seeds because when it was all said and done, and I just came to a place of where I was gonna be saved and I was gonna have this walk and I was gonna just really live a purpose-filled life. I actually got to a point where I really had to learn how to forgive myself. Like I repented and I was and I know I had been forgiven, but I had to learn how to forgive myself because I was in this place where I was good. God had came in, had washed me, had cleaned me. I'm good and I'm going on. But I will sometimes run across those females, that I've had those encounters with, and I'm saying to myself,
absolutely,
oh man, look at her, and I feel guilty because I'm like, I'm in a good place and I can look at her and, part of it, I'm kind of responsible for that.
My decision.
So you kind of look at the situation and you say, oh man, I kind of cheated her. Like I'm good. I'm well off. I'm over there. But look at what predicament she's in. Like that's not fair to her.
Yeah. Now that's interesting to have you say that because what that just made me think is thinking about what you just said, and then also Nasi is that as men, that it says that the man is first. You're the example. You're all these kinds of things that you were just told you were supposed to only lead them to Christ. So God was trying to use you as an example as a man. And then like Martinez, you're talking about, okay, well look what I did, and now realizing that the choice that I made to, oh yeah, I got her, I was with her, but now looking at her situation because maybe you were able to be free. But maybe that person is not.
Right.
And that's a big weight and heavy weight to carry.
Yeah, it is. You really have to get to a point where you say, okay, Lord, you forgave me. I know you have, but no condemnation. I know it's no condemnation. Like I really need to get to a place where I can forgive myself. Yeah. Because until you forgive yourself, you won't be able to move on. You'll never be able to move on because no matter how far you go, it'll always be something that'll return you back to that same spot.
Right.
And it's a door for Satan to talk through too. Because I can remember, like after the lives that I perverted with whatever I did, I'd be jumping around during praise and worship. I'm feeling free, but in the back of my mind, Satan would be like, "Yeah, but you know what you did with old girl. You know what position she's in.
It's like a constant reminder of why you shouldn't be saved or why you shouldn't be free. It almost makes you
don't deserve it.
Right.
Yeah, at all. You don't deserve it. You don't like why? Who are actually the devil's favorite thing to say to me was, "Who are you to be jumping up and down?"
You're not even qualified to praise God.
You're not qualified.
Like you're not worthy enough to be up in here,
man. It's a door. It's a definite door. Just like and the whole root problem of porn and sex is that lust problem. And it's now sometimes it really isn't your fault because it might be the household you were brought up in. Right. You seeing promiscuity all over the house, or you were touched on as little, and now this is just the world you've been introduced to. Like it's really like that's the first part where you have to start at is that lust that has to cut off, and you have to cut that
but now
off
you have to identify it. And like I believe as us sitting here talking about it that it does help you to be able to identify where the enemy snuck in. Like I was at a conference and listening to someone speak, and he was talking about how the enemy creeps in on you, and he used this example. He was standing by a door, so everybody's got an imagination of a door. He was standing at the door, and he said the enemy doesn't come in quickly. He comes in slow and he takes his time. And so he says what he does is the door is you, but he says what he does is he comes to the door and he just stands there. And things will attract you and things like that.
It's kind of true because
very true.
Not to cut you off, but I can remember a time where it was like, I'm not, because I was raised in the church, so I've always known that it wasn't the right thing to do. Like it never was a time where I was like, oh, well, I'm not really sure. I knew what I was doing was inappropriate and it was wrong and it was sin. I knew that. So, it was a time where I was like, I'm not gonna watch porn.
Right.
I'll pull these pictures up on the internet and watch them, but I'm not gonna actually watch a movie, the porn.
I'm just gonna look at it.
So then
justification.
And then it went from that to where, okay, I'll watch porn. I'm just not gonna watch it on Sundays.
Yeah.
Like seriously.
Yes.
So I was like, I'm gonna watch it. I'm just not gonna watch it on Sundays.
You're right.
So that didn't work. So then it was like, okay, well this is not working. I'm gonna try not to watch porn. If I happen to watch porn, what I do is,
Lord forgive me.
This may sound crazy, but however long I took time watching porn after I get done with it, I'm gonna read my Bible just as long.
Yes.
Like, seriously.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Like, I can spend this much time.
I can spend it with
That
God.
is the truth.
Like,
Oh, man. That is the
it,
truth.
I mean,
Oh, man.
you know, unconsciously, you kind of justifying it.
Yes, you
and
are.
making
You are.
yourself feel better about the situation. Like, I'm trying. Yeah, I did it. But look what I did.
Right.
You know, to cover that up. Like,
Making it
I'm
okay.
really trying to get this
But
thing together.
that's the way of the enemy creeping in.
Right, so it's just like, don't start it at all, because once you open that door,
It
it's
stays
over with.
open.
Once you open
It
that door,
stays
I mean, it's no limits.
Right.
Like the devil
Yeah.
will go as far as you allow him to do.
Right.
Once you open that avenue, open that door for the enemy, it's open.
Well, and I don't know what listener this will help, but my justification was masturbation. When I said, you know what, I'm not gonna have sex anymore. Like, this is okay. Of course, I can please myself. I'm not harming anybody else.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm still scoring myself. And what am I thinking about when I'm
While
doing
doing
it?
it.
Right.
It's still in pure
Yes.
thoughts. I'm still going back to the
Yes.
last partner I had,
Right.
or the first, or whoever in between. You know,
Or whatever you saw.
right, or
Yeah.
whatever I saw, and I'm just creating these images in my mind so that I can be pleased for the moment. As long
Right.
as I'm not with somebody else, I'm just with me. It's all good. But that was my justification for not having sex myself. So yeah, I completely.
But see, and then the thing is,
Oh,
also,
she speaks.
hey, look, but the thing is, it also, for me, I tried to use it to prolong holding off having sex, because I had the issue of pornography and masturbation. So at 16, all my friends weren't virgins no more, and I'm just sitting there twiddling my thumbs like, well, okay, I'm holding out till marriage. I'm like, but you did what? I was
Right.
curious, and I'm like, well, I can't experience that. I'm trying to hold out till marriage. So actually, my best friend at the time, she went out and bought me a sex toy.
Wow.
And so that started a whole whirlwind of disaster.
Right.
And so, I had the sex toys and I'm like, okay, I'm good. We do this. And then of course, you have your thoughts, but then your thoughts get boring.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, let me, go ahead and turn on the porn.
Right.
So now, you got masturbation and pornography. But then it's like, after a while, it's like, okay, I'm tired of doing this. This is
I need
boring.
somebody.
Right. And so, actually, I wound up getting pressured into having sex, and it wasn't even from my friends. It was my aunt, who at the time I didn't know was my aunt.
Wow.
Because the guy that I was dating, his dad was dating my aunt.
Right.
And so she found out that I was a virgin. And so when she found out I was a virgin and that I wasn't giving him any, she was like, well, he's not going to be with you if you don't give him, and a man is not going to want to deal with a woman that's a virgin, and blah, 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 blah. So me and him have been friends for years, since we were little, and I was head over heels for him. So I was like, well, might as well go on ahead. So now I got 3 issues, because now I got sex, masturbation, and pornography.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I moved to Dallas that God was able to fully stop it, because when I came to Dallas, I promise you I had a box probably about 8-9 sex toys. I had $500 worth of sex toys.
Wow.
In a box with lubes, everything,
Wow.
the whole laptop and everything. So, I think I spoke about this before, where I had to, encounter a demonic spirit.
Right.
And when I came across that demonic spirit, I anointed my laptop. I threw everything in the garbage, because it was the scariest experience. But after dealing with that, I realized what was going on, and I was like, no, it's time. We gotta let that go. And so, for a lot, it may seem like it's a big struggle for men, but women, that's the issue.
Well, I want to continue this conversation, but I want to leave everybody before we just take a break real quick with this, to just think about, because everything that everyone has talked about as far as their decisions and where that's led them to. Romans 12:2, the English Standard Version says, "Do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God." What is God and acceptable and perfect? And so I'm saying that because of everybody talking about those decisions, is that you can't be conformed to the world and what the world is doing by it leading you into whatever you got into anyways. You got to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. But we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, and I was running close because that was 29.5, so I got to... All right, All right, everyone, we are back from the break and we are continuing the discussion. We are just continuing the discussion on the power to choose and the decisions, the voice, and the choice of what you've chosen to do with your life, what you're choosing to do right now, and then where is your voice in this? And right now, I'm sure somebody's like, well, what do you mean, where's my voice in this? But we're going to talk a little bit more about this because what we've been talking about is having the guys speak about their past decisions of pornography and sex, and then how that has led them to the places of, you know, the justifying of their sins and what they've chosen to do and things like that. So we're just going to continue that conversation, and I hope for any parent that's listening to this that you don't turn it off, but that you continue to listen, because everybody here has been very upfront and honest about what has happened in their past, and nobody here was really experiencing rape or molestation, but the fact that like pornography and sex was introduced to them through something else, through the TV, through the computer. And I want parents that are listening to understand that you are the first protection of your children and your seed. You are their covering. So if you're watching things on TV, and I'm not going to name any of the shows that are out, but you know what's on TV, and we love them, but you know what? God's not in it. I don't care what anybody says. Whenever there's a show on and somebody's cheating on their spouse and they're cheating and sleeping with this person, or they're sleeping with the same sex, all of these things, those are all sins that are sexual sins that come in, and you start wondering, well, my child is fine right now, but you've brought the enemy into your house through your TVs, through books, the things that you have at home. And that's something I'm going to go to so that it'll spark the guys' conversation. But I'm going to use an example that happened to me so a parent can hear, and even for the kids, so you can begin to understand how you're wondering, well, why am I feeling this way, or why is this happening? When I was younger, and my mom we just recently had this conversation, so you guys can chime in, but this will to get you thinking. When I was younger, my mom and dad had one book we had tons of books on the shelf. My mom's rule was you can go anywhere in the world if you just pick up a book. You know, use your mind. So her thing was imagination and all that. So she had tons of books on the shelf that she purchased. Well, they happened to have, I mean, my parents were married, so they had, like, I guess it's considered Kama Sutra books or whatever. Yeah. Well, they had, it was only one, and it was like a cartoon type book that was on the shelf. And it was like, mind you, it was one. I'm just now telling my mom this into the 30s, and she said, oh my God. But she thought because it was for married couples, no big deal. But what she did not know is that her daughter, the one that she never saw, I wasn't doing anything wrong, but the one that she had prayed for, you know, years ahead of time, I was looking in this book and was fascinated with the genitals. Like, I was constantly, and it's so funny, it's not funny, but it's just being real. Like, I would trace the penis and the vagina. Most of the time I was tracing the penis because I was a female, so it was more attractive, and, you know, whatever my mind could go, and I look at the pictures and stuff. Sometimes I'd have it at school, but then so I wouldn't get in trouble, and if the teacher came around, I stuck it in someone else's cubby hole. You know, I'm serious. Like, it amazes me now of the things that I was introduced to, but I think Satan was always trying to caress me into it, but that somehow, because I still say because of the prayer that my mom prayed, it kept me from going all the way in. I was introduced to it enough that I can have a conversation with other people. I saw porn. I've been in the toy stores. I mean, I've seen it all. There's nothing I haven't seen. I've gone up and I've looked up all the different sexual fetishes and addictions, but I understand why. It's because that's what I've been called to, and you need to know what people are doing in order to cast it out and call it out too. Now, I'm not telling anybody else to go and sit and find these things, because that's a temptation for you, but I did not know that I was looking at this stuff, that it was a call that was on my life for me to expose the enemy's tactics around sexual immorality. Amen. And so that book in the home, I don't even remember. I can just remember being in the 6th grade in Miss George's class and putting a penis in two of the guys' cubbies, and I remember they got in trouble. But it's just like, and they were like, I didn't draw this. I mean, because they were really good traces. Wow. And I had traced from out of the book. But being serious, my mom had one book, and so my mom thought about it when we had this conversation. And I'm gonna let y'all chime in, but we had this conversation. She said, "Wow." I said, "You didn't know I was drawing these pictures." Now, my brother lived a whole nother life that was opposite from me. So y'all can think about the lives that y'all have lived. You know, he is now saved and sanctified and things like that. But he was doing the same thing you guys were. And my mom said, oh my God, now that makes me understand. Your brother got into sex and things like that. And I was like, oh, he was reading the book too. But he took it to the next level. He had the porn. He had all of that kind of stuff from the magazines, everything. But it's like my mom said, that was the hole. You know, that was the open entry into our house, because she said we didn't have, you know, bad things being played on the TV. Parents don't realize that what they bring into the house, because they're the covering.
That's right.
So y'all wanted to talk about that.
You go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So actually, for me, I got the promotion of premarital sex as a baby. My memory actually goes back pretty far. I want to say I was about 3 years old. My parents were never married, but I actually witnessed them have sex. I actually witnessed them take a shower together. I witnessed them as a non-married couple engaged in sexual activity. So, like I said, I got that promotion when I was at a young age.
That's it. And
yeah, I got my teaching as time went by. You know, that it's not right to have sex before marriage, but at the same time, like I said, that was something that I got the belief or the picture or whatever that was okay to do. You know, some people are gonna have sex before marriage, like as long as they're in love, or so they say in love, it's okay for them to do
or
it.
Committed relationship.
Or they gonna get married.
Or they're gonna. I know I'm gonna marry this girl.
And you've been knowing her 4 months.
Right,
right.
But yeah, right. So yeah, but that was just justification. So like I say, there are people that you look at, it's like, okay, they were able to wait until marriage. They're in love, but see, these people love each other too. And another thing that bothered me, now that was one thing, you know, a lot of parents, they go off on their kids for having sex at an early age, even though they may never be married, and they bring a constant boyfriend, or you know, different boyfriends, different girlfriends around, and of course they're active with their boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever, but they want to trip on their daughters for having a baby in middle school or even elementary. You know, sometimes you have 10-11-year-olds getting pregnant these days. But anyway, like, how can you really trip on your child when that's something that you showed them was okay? Like, you really didn't protect them from that. You didn't shelter their minds and their purity from that. And also conversation. Your relatives and your friends that you're bringing over to your place, and you're talking about these things, and they're present in the room, and then the movies that you're allowing them to watch, when you like you're not really sheltering them, you're not really protecting them. So why are you really angry when you find that they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing at a young age? And one of the things that bothered me the most coming up was hearing an adult say, "Get out of grown folks' conversation." What is grown folks' conversation? Just because you're grown doesn't mean that it's okay. If you're married, it's appropriate. But just because you're grown, like, what is grown? That doesn't make it okay. Now, if you're married, you know, that makes that appropriate. But yeah, I never understood, like, what is grown folks' conversation? Or do what grown folks do. No, that's not what grown folks do. That's what married folks do.
Or what a lot of parents have said, don't do as I do.
Oh, I hate it.
And I'm like, so
but you're my example. But you are my example. You said that you would rather me learn at home than at the school. What are you showing at home? What are you showing at home? You'd rather me drink here than now. Why do you want me to drink in the first place? Like, you don't know that I may get an addiction to that. I mean, it may not have affected you as heavily, but it may lead to my death or something. Like, you're not thinking long term. You're not really protecting your child. So, I mean, this isn't a bashing of the parents that do that. I love my parents. You know, I mean, hey, I thank God for them. But yeah, I'm just encouraging that. Be mindful of what you're exposing your child to, what you're letting them see, the conversations that you're having around them, the things that you encourage with them, the things that you feel like just because it's done at home in the presence of the family, that is gonna keep them, you know, from messing up down the line.
Well, I'll say this. Because now we're getting into children, and this is my area. Parents don't realize how much their actions affect their children. And I'll say this because they think that because your child is young that they don't know. Kids know.
Absolutely.
When I was teaching back in Buffalo, I had a child. He was 1 going on 2, and he would come to school. And he would just he'll lay on the baby dolls and he'll just grind on the baby dolls. Now granted, scientists say that children do have the ability to have orgasms. Right. They do get aroused or whatever the case may be, but he would just grind on the baby dolls. So I explained to the mom, you know, your child is coming to school humping the toys. Like, you know, she's like, I don't understand where he gets that from, and they're married. So I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. But she explained to me that
his bed is in their room.
Yes, he sleeps in their room, and she's like, but he's asleep, and I said, no, clearly he's not. And the thing is, even though he may not visually see it, you still have to understand that his spiritual and airports are still open to that. I said, so kids' eyes may be closed, may be asleep, but you still have to understand that most of us, when we sleep, you may not necessarily see stuff, but you can hear stuff while you're sleeping. I said, so, you know, so when I spoke to her about it, he stopped doing it like probably like a week or so. He stopped doing it. But then they went on vacation, and the aunt went and watched the baby who was in my room. She watched the older kids, but she wouldn't watch the baby, so he had to go with them on vacation. Well, he came back from vacation, and he started doing it again. Because I was on the floor, and he came, like, he sat on my leg, and he was doing it. I was like, like, what was you doing? And so I told her, I was like, you know, he's doing it again. And she's like, well, I don't understand. And I'm like, you have to, anytime your child is in the room with you, in the bedroom, this is why I tell parents all the time, your kids need their own room. Because married couples need to do what married couples do. Your kids do not need to be around that. Period. I mean, I understand that, you know, it is okay for you to do it, but your children take that in. So they don't see that as, you know, it's a godly thing. They just see that as something that mommy and daddy does.
That they enjoy.
Like, because they're getting something out of it too.
Another thing is, I would just like to encourage the listeners, you know, that's old enough and that has understanding to just, you know, form a personal relationship with God Himself. Because sometimes in the household there is no there is no relationship with God.
Spirituality.
And when you have no relationship with God, there is no standard in living. You'll do just about anything that you want to do. So if the parents are in the household and they have no standard, I mean, whatever they want to do, whatever they seem right, whatever that, you know, them being grown allows them to do, that's what they're going to do. And they do expect, you know, you to stay in your place and you to not do these things just for the simple fact that, hey, I'm grown, I work, you know, I pay these bills, I take care of everything around here. You the child, so you have to listen to me. So with that being said, they may not put the right things inside of you. You know, they may feed you some negative things, and they may give off bad energy. So the best thing for you to do is to just form a personal relationship, because no matter how old you are or what level of understanding you're on, God will meet you where you are. And He'll keep you, He'll protect you, He'll walk with you, and He'll talk with you on your level. You could be 11, 12 years old and have a relationship and know that God is God. God will make Himself God to you, even at the age of 11. So even if your parents don't really be so dependent upon them as far as my parents are going to lead me in the right direction, or my parents are going to make sure that I'm okay,
as much as I like for them,
or my parents are going to make sure that I do the appropriate things and that I don't do the inappropriate things, because that's not the case. If you form a relationship with God and allow Him to lead you, then that'll X out a lot of the whole misconstrued understandings and beliefs that we get from our parents who don't know better, because some parents just don't know better.
And to anybody that's listening that has kids, just be careful who you bring around your children. That's the biggest thing. Like, even family. I mean, and nobody likes to touch on this subject, but a lot of people that I've encountered, male and female, who have been touched in inappropriate ways, have been from family members, or have experienced alcohol or weed or any kind of drugs, have been from family. So, and the number one thing is really you have to watch how you conduct yourself around your children, because parents all the time will be like, wow, I didn't even know that you even saw me do that. Like, where were you when I was doing that? I don't understand. How did you even see? Because kids are tape recorders. They record and they document it in their minds, and it comes out in their actions. So watch what, like, even the kind of conversation that you have, not even saying about sex, but the arguments that you have, that'll lead your child to thinking that, you know, okay, well, every discussion that I have has to get to this escalated and elevated point of yelling and screaming, and then eventually leads to a fist fight. Like, you need to, you are your child's covering. You really need to show them, look, this is how you handle a situation. This is how you talk a situation out. It doesn't always have to lead to aggression. It doesn't always have to lead to somebody getting physical with somebody else. Like, you really are your child's role model. So you really need to take that to heart. Watch who you're bringing around. I mean, literally, if it's not somebody who you know and feel that God has brought into your life, somebody that could help your child spiritually, don't even bother bringing them around, because that just opens up so many doors that you can't even imagine, or generational curses that it will create for them for being around people that they're never supposed to be around.
Right.
But that comes with discernment. So I mean, if you're doing the same things that the other family members are doing, not necessarily saying touching on children, but if y'all buddy and y'all smoking, drinking and everything together, then those are things that you don't pay attention to. Because if you're careless just like the next person, then you're not going to sit up there and be like, well, you know what, I think Mark is a child molester, so I don't know if I would want him at my house, because we hang out and we smoke together, we drinking and we having fun and everything else, so I'm not going to we family. I'm not going to notice things like that. And so even when you do deal with stuff like that, you still have the parents that when your child comes and you say, well, mommy, this happened to me, then, oh, that didn't happen to you. No, you lying.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
It under the rug.
Yeah,
we have to stop doing that, because what we have to realize, society has taken us away from the fact that everything starts at home. Yeah, all of your children's issues, future, current, whatever the case may be, starts at home. And I really push this as far as dealing with the kids in my classroom, because when they come in and they act out, my supervisor will come to me and they'll be like, well, this is going on in the classroom. No. Their behaviors start at home.
Right.
Yeah. They don't just come here. I don't teach these kids to pull here and to bite and to punch in the face and whatever the case may be. It starts at home. So whatever is going on in the house, you have to be very, very cautious of that, because you're molding your child.
Right.
So however you want your child to come up, they are a reflection of you.
Right.
Period.
Exactly.
That's right.
And so, you parents need to really take that into consideration. How do you want your children to go out into society and reflect you? Do you want people to be looking at them like, that's Bertha's child, just hot doggone mess. She ain't raised that. And old Bertha. But, because I was very cautious of that. My parents, I was raised in a Christian household, and my parents, made sure that they tried to keep us in line the best way as possible. But I was always particular about making sure that when I went out, I was scared of somebody knowing my mom and dad and going back and telling them. My friends be at the bus stop kissing all on their boyfriends and doing stuff and everything else, and I'm just like, is somebody watching me? Because when my parents found out I wasn't a virgin no more, I actually went to spend the night at the guy's house, not knowing that the guy's house was across the street from my aunt's best friend. And when I came out of the house to go to my friend's house, my aunt seen me coming out of his house, and she called my mom and dad and told them that my mom was coming to pick me. Right. And so my mom was like, you busted, right? And I'm just like, Wow. And so, I've always been scared of that, and it finally came and bit me in the behind. But, it's just, you really have to be cautious.
Yeah. If you're tuning in and you're right here at the close to the end of our show, we've got about 10 minutes left, and you're just now tuning in, you are listening to Vital Statistics, WSL Radio. My name is Shemetris Vital. This is our youth and young adult show, and you're listening to other young adults talking about decisions and choices, and those choices that were made a long time ago, but not even just their own choices, but the choices that have been made based off of the things that their parents did, the people that they were connected to. And that's very important. And one of the things that I want to go into real quick is Nas, and then we're talking about who you bring around your children. And I'm going to give you this scripture. Most of the time we hear it as test the spirit by the spirit, but the actual scripture is 1 John 4:1. In the NIV version, it says, "Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." So even as a Christian believer, don't believe that everybody that's in church that they can watch your kid, or that everybody is of God. You've got to test the spirit by the spirit, because the people, it needs to reflect back to the word of God. And obviously, even in this conversation that we have, I want to make sure that people know we're not just talking. I'm able to relate our conversations back to the word of the God, that, being transformed by the renewing of your mind, that those decisions that you've made, and now we're talking about the people that you're around, your ear gates, your eye gates, all of those things are places that the enemy can enter, your smell. And we don't realize that when we're around certain people, we bring things home. And one thing that I want to say for a young person that's listening to this, and they're like, well, I don't even know why I act out or whatever. Because what's happened is, like I said, you're watching TV and things like that, but sometimes you don't realize who you're connected to. So that friend that you have at school that you're buddy with, and you're changing in front of at gym, that whatever enemy has already tried to attack them, that somehow it now has connected itself to you. And you might not see something in the first 2 2 or 3 weeks or 2 months, and you're like, oh, my friend crazy. They done slept with 10 and 15 people. And somebody, I think, as we were talking in the early show, I think it was Megan, had said that, you know, her friends were having sex, but she wasn't. But eventually that spirit leaped off of them and was on her. And then you start wondering, like, dang, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? That's because now the enemy has attracted himself. He's attached to you, and he stayed quiet for a little while. He was on your back. And that's what I tell parents now. I'm like, whatever you're watching the TV, I said, that spirit knows it can't attack you. But I said, it has come out of that TV and it's lurking in your house to the right opportune time that then it goes to your child. Your child might be 2 or 3 and you're thinking, oh, they're so cute. Give them a year and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what happened to Johnny. He's just acting out. Well, did you think about what you was watching a year ago? That what you were watching and you forgot to pray after you finished watching it because you have to protect your home. You know, when you bring people in, there's a scripture that I think the old folks used to say, you know, dust the feet off your shoes before you walk in and sweep around your own front door. There's a scripture about that, about dusting your feet off before you walk in. And because that was a way of saying, we're going to leave whatever you bring it in on the outside of the door. Right. You know, so just real quick, we have a couple of minutes. If anybody just wants to chime in on anything else that I've said as far as decisions and everything, because I want to also, before we end, I want to leave just a 30-second prayer from each of you guys from the things that you guys have experienced that someone else can hear, that they can say, you know what, I can identify with that. And I know, young people, we talk more about sex, but that's because if you know me and you've been listening to me, you know that that is an issue and a concern to me, because I think a lot of the sins and the other issues that you deal with really revert back to a sexual sin of some kind. Right. Whether you stealing or whatever you're doing, the drugs or whatever, somehow it reverts back to some kind of sexual sin. Somebody that you were connected to, someone you had sex with, somebody you had oral sex with, whether you watched it on TV, all of those things actually connect together, and we need to start talking about it. So I'm glad you guys ended up talking about it, even though that was not what I was going to bring up in conversation. So that's kind of my summary, but anybody want to step in and they feel like something's on their heart that they want to say before we go to closing up?
It's really simple. It's something that I was taught. It says, you know, your decisions form your habits, and your habits form your lifestyle. So really, I mean, you look at every decision as, okay, would I want to keep making this decision 20 years from now? Because it really is that serious. I like that. It really is that serious. Okay, I lied this one time. It won't be anything. Okay, I'll lie this time to cover the lie that I just told. Yeah. Now I'm telling this lie to cover up the other 2 lies, and then I got to lie about this to my parents and to my friends. Like, really, you need to take every decision that you make as what I want to continue making this 20 years from down the line, because you may look up and be like, I can't believe I'm still dealing with this, and I'm 40 and I was a teenager and I remember when I started it. And it seems like it's impossible for you to stop it. So every decision that you make, man, whether it be your work ethic, whether it be dating, whether it be even sex, whatever that it may be, look at it as that serious. Like, because you can form good habits from just little decisions, like, you know, taking care of things when they need to get taken care of. So now you don't have procrastination that you have to deal with now. Like, just really deal with your decisions in that manner. Do I want to keep dealing with this years from now, or do I want to stop it now?
Also, understand that your decisions have a direct effect on some people, as well as an indirect effect. God, you may, you know, reach out. Unintentionally reach out to a family member, but you understand that they're looking up to you, or your friends, or your teacher, you know, whatever it is, whatever the connection. But then there's somebody that they're connected to that you're not. That was your indirect effect on somebody. And because of what, you know, because of the perception that you gave them of you, or whatever ideas you gave them about this and that, it affected whomever they were connected to. And then that's just some ongoing just negative impact, negative effect. So understand, whatever decision you make, it can affect someone that you may never meet. So that can be for the negative, but the beautiful thing about it, that can be for the positive. Do something that's really going to impact the life for the better, and understand that that's going to reach far beyond the person that you saw, or the person that you thought that you were reaching out to. Just make those decisions that are going to benefit you as well as somebody else.
I like that. Anybody else got something just spewing over on them? Megan, you want nothing to say?
No, I think the 2 of them summed it up pretty good.
Anything
pretty
else?
much.
Well, we got, you hope y'all got a little more of a testimony. I give you another minute or so before we close out. Before I get to your prayer, I just want to make sure that they get it. Anybody got a little testimony that you want to say? Because y'all are obviously you're in your 20s. We talked about where some of these decisions have led you to. And then something like you said, Naj, you were talking about, 20 years from now. Well, how about I just had the experience where I sat with somebody who is alive, well, and walking and ticking and doing everything. She's 60 years older than me. And it made me think about, I said, man, I started writing around prayers for my future. And I was like, Jesus, if I'm here in my 90s, I mean, it was making me think, because she gave me an example of a decision she had made 30 years ago, and she's in her 90s, how now that is coming into effect and why she's still around. I was like, wow. Like, most of the people listening to this radio show right now, they can't get past the fact maybe they might be able to count up to 30, But other than that, they're not looking to that, because I barely was able to look to 50. Like, 50 years old. Now I can kind of, because I'm starting to think beyond where I'm at, that it's like, 15 years from now, like having kids and they're going to be bigger. So just real quick, I probably took up that extra minute. Go ahead.
Just something brief. You have to have a will and have a desire to want to live, and not only live, but live with purpose, and to want to do better, and to not see yourself, as your mother or as your father, whatever they mishaps or mess ups may be.
There you go.
You want greater. You want greater for yourself. You want more for yourself. You want better for yourself and the family that's to come after you. So you just have to have a will to live and to just push forward.
I like that. So, 30-second prayer or word of encouragement, Nas.
Well, right now it's just a prayer. Father God, thank you, Lord, that every person that listened to this, God, every generational curse is broken. Amen. God, thank you for the seeds that were planted, God, from everybody's testimony. God, I thank you that those seeds will be watered and will bring forth fruit, God, and every generational curse, every lie, every lust spirit, Father God, every anger spirit will be broken off of them right now in Jesus' name. And you are somebody, don't let anybody ever tell you that you're not. Yes. You are not your mistakes. You are not your flesh. You just made some decisions, but I am a living testament and witness. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you've been through. God can still use you.
All right. Martinez?
Real quick, I just want to share that, and I know it's some cliche, but God's grace is sufficient. Yes, like, I don't care what you've done. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care what the situation may be. God, Jesus Christ, the blood has already covered. God's grace already has it. Get yourself back in position. Position yourself for the blessing and keep going forward. Do not allow yourself to be down over past hang-ups that you've had.
Amen. You did it in 30 seconds. Mark?
My encouragement is that you receive your deliverance. Go ahead and walk in your testimony. That's one of my greatest beliefs in this season, is that a lot of people don't believe that they have a testimony, that they have something that they can walk out of. But your life is a testimony. There is something that you once done that you don't have to keep continuing to do, even with the decisions that you once made. So go ahead and walk in your testimony, be delivered, walk freely, and continue to walk in purpose. Actually enjoy this life, embrace this life that has been offered up to you.
Maggie, you got less than 30 seconds. Go for it.
Thanks, guys. So I just encourage you to, live outside of what everybody expects from you. If your family has done things one way and God is calling you towards another, then just go where God is guiding you. Right. Don't let your years be a waste, because time is not promised to anyone. And so, just do what God has called you to do, regardless of what people say, and just keep it pushing.
Amen. So everyone, you have heard it first. This is Vital Statistics, Shemetris Bible, WSL Radio. Check out the scriptures, 2 Timothy 1:7. This is the English Standard Version. For God gave us a spirit, not